The nurses thought the neurosurgeon had finally lost it. He'd just finished brain surgery, opened the skull, dealt with the bleed, closed everything back up. Routine. And then he told the recovery team to wheel the patient outside, into the sun, to heal in open air. They stared at him. He was dead serious. His name is Dr. Jack Kruse, more than 10,000 brain surgeries over his career, and he does things in the operating room that would get him laughed out of most hospitals. He puts hydrogen peroxide directly onto exposed brain tissue. He shines ultraviolet light on the spinal cord during back surgeries. And he insists every single patient recovers outdoors in natural sunlight. The nurses stopped laughing when they saw what happened. His patients needed less pain medication, they healed faster, they had fewer complications. A colleague down the hall, operating on a nearly identical case the same week with standard protocol, had a patient stroke out. Kruse's patient walked. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why the light inside an operating room might matter more than the surgeon's hands, and why the same principle applies to the light you're sitting under right now. Before I can explain what Kruse figured out, you need to understand something about your brain that even most doctors don't think about. Your brain is built inside out. Most organs protect their important parts deep inside. Your kidneys, for example. Blood enters through the center and branches outward. The delicate tissue is buried, safe. Your brain does the opposite. The neurons that handle your thinking, your memory, your personality, the most important cells you own, they live right on the surface. And the blood vessels that feed them come from the outside and dive inward. The carotid arteries break into smaller and smaller branches that run along the outer surface before plunging deep. So when a surgeon removes a section of skull and peels back the protective membrane, underneath, the first thing that's exposed to the open air and to whatever light is in that room is the most sensitive, most irreplaceable tissue in your entire body. No shield, no buffer. Just raw brain surface sitting directly under a surgical lamp. And in every operating room on the planet, that lamp is a xenon microscope light. Nobody questions it. It's the standard. But what is that light actually doing to the tissue underneath? Now's where this gets interesting. To understand why that surgical lamp matters, you need to meet a protein most people have never heard of. It's called melanopsin. Let me build this simply. You know your eyes detect light. That's obvious. But how do they do it? Through specialized proteins that act like tiny antennas. Each one is tuned to a specific job. Some detect color, some detect motion, and one, melanopsin, detects the quality of light around you and uses that information to set your internal clock. When melanopsin senses bright morning light, it tells your brain to wake up, produce cortisol, and get alert. When it senses dimming evening light, it tells your brain to wind down, start producing melatonin, and prepare for sleep. So far, straightforward, melanopsin is a light antenna in your eyes that runs your body clock. Here's where it gets strange. Scientists started finding melanopsin in places that have nothing to do with your eyes. It shows up in blood vessels throughout the body, in neurons deep inside the brain, in tissue that external light could never possibly reach. Stop and think about that. Why would your body build light antennas in places where there's no light? Unless the cells themselves are producing their own light internally. That's a question we'll come back to. But here's what matters for surgery. When a surgeon opens your skull, the brain tissue that's now exposed is loaded with these melanopsin sensors. They're in every blood vessel on the surface. They're in the cortical neurons, and they are extremely sensitive to the type of light hitting them. A xenon surgical lamp puts out a broad, intense spectrum heavy in blue frequencies. And at surgical intensities with no skull for protection, that blue heavy light doesn't just activate melanopsin, it damages it. Think about this for a second. If you or someone you love has ever had brain surgery or might someday, Here's a question that was almost certainly never asked. What type of light was shining on the exposed brain during the operation? Not which hospital, not which surgeon. What light? Your surgeon probably can't answer that. Not because they're incompetent, because nobody in their entire medical education ever told them it mattered. The physics of light on living tissue is not part of the curriculum, so the xenon light exposed brain tissue packed with light sensors. What happens next? It destroys melanin. And melanin is not what most people think it is. When you hear the word melanin, you probably think of skin color. But reducing melanin to skin color is like saying your phone's processor is just a piece of metal. Melanin is the most versatile protective molecule in your body. It absorbs energy across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Ultraviolet, visible light, infrared, all of it. When harmful energy hits melanin, it neutralizes it and hands off whatever's left to the water in your cells for safe disposal. Think of melanin as the surge protector for your biology. It sits between incoming energy and your sensitive equipment. Sure, nothing gets fried. And melanin is concentrated in the most critical parts of your brain. There's a region called the substantia nigra, which literally translates from Latin as the dark substance. It's so packed with melanin that when you slice a brain open, you can see it with your naked eye. No microscope, no special staining. It's visibly dark, and it happens to be exactly where your brain produces dopamine, the molecule behind motivation, pleasure, and movement. When xenon light hits exposed brain tissue with no skull for protection, it degrades this melanin. It's like pulling the surge protector out of the wall during a lightning storm. The brain's protective system is being compromised at the exact moment it needs protection most. So Kruse didn't just identify the problem, he rebuilt his surgical practice around fixing it. The sunlight recovery is the most visible change and the one that made the nurses think he'd cracked. But the logic is simple. If the surgical light degraded the brain's melanin during the operation, the fastest way to help the brain rebuild its protection is to give it the input that melanin evolved to work with. Sunlight contains every frequency the brain needs to regenerate melanin and restore those damaged light sensors. It's free, and it works. The hydrogen peroxide is the one that really raises eyebrows. He applies a diluted solution directly onto exposed brain tissue during surgery. Remember the inside-out anatomy. The most oxygen-hungry cells are on the surface, and they're the first to suffocate when blood flow is disrupted during an operation. Hydrogen peroxide releases oxygen right at the surface where the mitochondria, the energy factories in each cell, are starving for it. He learned this technique from Dr. David Klein, a legendary surgeon who trained a generation of neurosurgeons. Old-school medicine, the kind of practical knowledge that gets lost when everyone chases the newest technology. And then there is the story he told on Rick Rubin's podcast that stopped me cold. An 80-year-old banjo player from Nashville needed a 5-level spinal fusion. 5 vertebrae decompressed, screwed, and rotted together. One of the most punishing operations in spine surgery. Most surgeons wouldn't touch an 80-year-old for that case. Kruse put him on cold exposure and infrared light for 6 weeks before the operation. Once the spinal cord was exposed, he applied ultraviolet A light directly to the tissue with the patient's written consent. Blood loss was under 50 cubic centimeters. For a 5-level fusion, that's almost nothing. The man walked out of the hospital, went back on stage, played banjo for 2 more years. After outcomes like that, the nurses stopped questioning the sunlight protocol that they earlier laughed at. Now I need you to zoom out. Because this is not just a story about operating rooms. Your skull normally shields your brain from direct light, but your eyes are a wide open door. The melanopsin in your retina is connected to melanopsin systems throughout your body. When you sit under fluorescent or LED lighting for 14 hours a day, Staring at blue-dominant screens, you're running a slower version of the exact same experiment that happens under a xenon surgical lamp. Surgery makes the damage fast and obvious. Your daily environment does it gradually. Same proteins being degraded, same mechanism, different time scale. And the chronic version might actually be worse because you never get a clean break to recover. If blue heavy xenon light is the problem, the solution has been hiding in plain sight. Red light. And the reason is beautiful in its simplicity. The most abundant atom in the sun is hydrogen. When hydrogen releases energy, its signature emission is red light. Now look inside your cells. The proteins in your mitochondria that actually produce your energy, called cytochromes, are tuned to absorb light at very specific frequencies. 620 nanometers, 680, 716, 860. Every single one falls in the red and near infrared range. The exact frequencies that hydrogen produces. Your cellular power plants are literally tuned to the most common light the sun emits. That's not an accident. That's evolution locking in the most reliable energy source available. Red light doesn't damage melanin. It powers the system that melanin protects, and it penetrates deep. 6 to 10 centimeters through tissue, straight through bone. This isn't theoretical. Every anesthesiologist proves it every single surgery. That little clip on your finger, the pulse oximeter, works by shining red light through your finger to measure oxygen. If red light couldn't penetrate tissue, that device wouldn't exist. When Kruse was asked on Rick Rubin's podcast with Andrew Huberman whether surgery could happen under red light, his answer was instant. All surgery should happen under red light. There are practical challenges. Surgeons need to see tissue color distinctions to operate safely. But the conversation has to start, because right now we're using the worst possible spectrum on the most sensitive tissue in the body and nobody's questioning it. Now step all the way back and look at the biggest implication. If the spectrum of light in a room can affect how brain tissue heals after surgery, then light is not a minor detail in biology. It's a primary variable. And here's what should keep every researcher up at night. Every study in modern biology has been performed under artificial light. Everyone. Lab rats housed under fluorescent bulbs. Cell cultures grown under LED panels. Brain tissue examined under xenon microscopes. And not a single study controls for the light as a variable. It's never mentioned, never measured, never accounted for. We know that blue-dominant light degrades melanopsin. We know it changes how cells function, how hormones are produced, and how neurotransmitters behave. And every experiment studying those exact systems was run under the very light that disrupts them. Kruse puts it simply. It's like trying to study fish behavior by draining the aquarium. You can't understand how a system works when you're breaking it during the observation. That single uncontrolled variable could call decades of published conclusions into question. Here's what you take with you today. If someone you care about is facing surgery, especially on the brain or about the light environment, you probably won't change the operating protocol. But you can control recovery. Get that person into morning sunlight as soon as they're medically able, full spectrum, no sunglasses. That's not a wellness trend. It's giving the brain the raw material it needs to rebuild its protective system. For your own daily life, audit your light after dark. The same melanopsin that gets damaged in operating rooms is being degraded in your bedroom every night by LED bulbs and screen glow. Swap your evening bulbs for red spectrum ones. They cost a few dollars. Reduce screen time in the last hour before sleep, and get outside in morning sunlight within the first hour of waking. These aren't luxury biohacks. They're maintenance for a body that runs on light. And the most powerful medical tool on the planet falls from the sky every morning. It costs nothing. You just have to step outside. Every neurosurgeon on Earth operates under xenon light. The brain's most sensitive tissue sits right on the surface. That tissue is packed with light sensors that xenon degrades. And one surgeon who understood the physics changed everything about how he practices. The nurses thought he was crazy. His patients proved him right. The light in your operating room matters. The light in your bedroom matters. Your biology runs on light. Choose your light wisely. Next in this series, the only supplement Dr. Kruse says is worth taking. It's not a pill. It's not a powder. And there are randomized controlled trials behind it. Subscribe so you don't miss it.